Hello there, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel for part 2 of the Simon Says Stamp December 2018 card kit. If you missed part 1, go ahead and head back to my channel so that you can check that out. So let's go ahead and get started with card number 1. I have a piece of red cardstock that came in the kit, and I've just scored that at 5.5 inches. That was originally cut to 4.25 inches by 11 inches. And I have a piece of white cardstock that I had trimmed down using the My Favorite Things Hit the Slopes die. And I've also got some of the stickers. I'm going to completely cover, or not cover, but I'm going to use nothing but stickers on this card. So I'm taking those stickers and I am covering those with my embossing buddy. So the powder in there will take away the stickiness because I'm not exactly sure how I want to lay these down. So the best way to get rid of the stickiness is to just cover those with that embossing bag. And then I'll kind of figure out my layout and I will start to assemble the card. I'm curling up each of those ends on that jolly banner, and I'm just using some liquid glue on the top parts of that. I know that will probably get bent down when I send it through the mail, but for now it looks really cute like that. Or if I hand that off to somebody, then it'll stay that way. So I'm just going to continue to do that with all of those letters, curling up just the flag ends, putting adhesive on the tops, and then just sticking that down. And then to make that look like a cohesive banner, I'm going to grab a Copic multi-liner pen, and I am just going to make it look like the banner is, well, just that, a banner. So I'll put little black lines in between each of those letters to look like they're connected. And then I'll start assembling the rest of it. This is a very simple card, obviously. I'm using that liquid glue once again on that slope, and I'll stick that down. And then I actually decide that for the Santa, I want to use foam tape. But before I do that, I'm going to put down the sentiment, which says, "Here comes Santa Claus." And then I'll peel off that backing paper, and then I will adhere Santa down to make it look like he's trudging through the snow. And to finish that off, that last bit, I'm going to use some stickles, some green stickles. I can't remember if these are the joyful or the festive, but that will finish off card number 1. I really like how this one turned out. Those stickers make it so easy. So card number 2 is going to be all about the stamping. I have a piece of the green cardstock that came in the kit that I'm scoring at 5.5 inches once again. And I am going to go ahead and do this because I plan to do some inking and embossing. I'm also going to grab some Post-it tape, and I'm going to put that right along that crease because I don't want my stamping to go on the other side. I'm using my powder bag to make sure that I don't have any static onto my card base, and I'm just going to start stamping the little postage stamps that came in the stamp set. And that stamp set was called Christmas Cheer, and I'm stamping that randomly all over the back of my cardstock. And I'm grabbing just the 3 postage stamps. So I'll stamp those all over, and then I'll grab the little one and do the same thing with it. It isn't obviously perfect stamping. That's what makes random stamping kind of nice. And that I'm not that concerned about that center, simply because I'm going to cover that up with an image. I'm going to use some of the Simon Says Stamp Antique Gold embossing powder. This is a fine powder, so it will pick up detail, which is really nice. And I'm putting that all over that background. And when I have the good coverage that I would like, I will peel off that Post-it tape very carefully, and then I will start to heat set that. So I'm just going to heat that until it melts, and you can tell, especially in the video, as it's melting. I love that part. That's my favorite. And I'll just keep melting that background. I'm going to do some Copic coloring as well. So I have a piece of Neenah or Express It cardstock that I've stuck into my Mini Misty, and I am going to stamp this with Memento to start. I'm not going to show you any of my coloring because this video is mostly about the ideas, and I'm calling this card number 2, even though since this is part 2 I would typically call this card number 6. However, I had a bonus project in the last one, and I do plan to have a bonus project in this one too. So there's the coloring, and I left that stamp in my positioner because I want to go over this with the Simon Says Stamp Clear Embossing Ink. So I want that to cover up those black lines. I'm going to stamp over the top of that, and the stamp positioner makes that really easy. I'll make sure that my embossing buddy goes over that there very thoroughly, and then I will stamp the tree right back over the top. And then I will cover that once again with the antique embossing powder, or the antique gold. And then I will heat that till it's melted with my heat gun. And I love the look of that. The reason I didn't just go ahead and stamp it in the gold and then use my embossing or use my Copics over that is because I have heard that it can ruin your Copics, and I'm not about to even try that simply because the Copics are so expensive. Now I just have a piece of black cardstock, and I stamp my sentiment, and I'm using that antique gold over that once again. And to be honest, I was a little concerned that it wouldn't heat properly, but that embossing powder is definitely a fine embossing powder, and that sentiment is very easily read. So now I'm just going to start assembling the card. I'm going to use foam tape on the back of my tree, and I will just stick that down into the center. And I'm also going to use thin strips of Scotch foam tape on the back of my sentiment. And I put this down, and I know that my sentiment itself isn't actually centered, even though I did use the T-ruler, so that kept it straight. My sentiment isn't centered. Honestly, it really doesn't bother me. So I like the way this one turned out. And that's going to finish off card number 2. Very shiny. Card number 3 is going to utilize the stickers once again, and I'm going to use this die that I have from Tailored Expressions called Postage Stamp. It has quite a few in there, and I'm going to use one that will go through my Sizzix Sidekick, because we all know I love that, and when I can use that, I will. And I'm just using some scrap white cardstock that I have, and I'm going to cut that out twice. I love this little postage stamp die. I think it works really well with these particular type of cards that I'm making, because they seem kind of vintagey anyway. And I'm just using a bone folder to do the pre-scored cardstock, and then I used my Blueprints 29 from My Favorite Things to cut out the patterned paper that came in the kit. And I did this in part 1, where I use a Copic, because it feels like that postage stamp, that die just kind of gets lost on that paper. There's so much going on that background. So I decided to color the borders of these postage stamp dies, or die cuts. And I'm just using just a red Copic, and I'm just coloring that up so that way it gives it a nice border, because there is a stitched border along the die cut, and so I just follow that line. It's very simple to do, so I do it on both. Next, I'm using some organdy ribbon that I had just on my desk. I believe this was from a past kit. And I'm going to hold that in place with my reverse tweezers. Sorry, I'm kind of off screen there. And I'm going to tie a bow. And there's really no magic to this other than practicing. And even when you practice, sometimes you don't get it right either. So I have to manipulate this several times. And when I finally get it the way I want, I pull off those reverse tweezers, and then I will trim down the extra on the ends of each of these, or end of each of the bows, or not each of the bows, each end of the bow. You know what I meant. And then that will be ready to go. So I'm just kind of trying to discover the placement of how I'm going to do these. And I decide that I want that one Santa, so I'm going to do the same thing with the powder bag on him, because I'm not exactly sure how I want to put him down. Probably going to use some foam tape. And then these other two, the ornaments, I go ahead and stick those right down, because I don't want those to have any dimension, because those are going to be behind anyway. So I'll grab my gold Spica pen, and I'm going to go ahead and extend their string so that it looks like they're hanging down. And then I'm going to go ahead and start adhering everything to that card base. And that card base is the Audrey Blue pre-scored that came in the kit. And I'll use my liquid adhesive all over the back to glue down that panel to the card base. And then I'll do the same thing with this first postage die cut. And then I'll do the same thing with the second one, just kind of overlapping them. And then I decide, of course, that I need that Santa to have some foam tape on him, but I don't want him to look like he's floating, so I grab my C1 Copic and I give him some ground to stand on. And I'll peel off the backing paper, stick him down, and then for my sentiment, I just grab Christmas Day and then Merry, so it says Merry Christmas Day I thought those were very cute together, and that will finish off card number 3. Easy peasy. Cards 4 and 5 were super fast and easy. I was inspired because there is a pole in the stickers and also a pole in the stamp set. So I used that My Favorite Things, hit the slopes die, and I cut out 4 slopes. And then I used My Favorite Things Blueprints number 29 to cut out 2 of the patterns on the paper. There's 2 of these beautiful sky patterns, one with snow and one with like swirling. And so I cut those out as well. And as you can see, I cut that out, and it does have the hole at the bottom. I talked about that in the first, that it really doesn't bother me if I'm going to cover it up, because, you know, with that 6x6 pattern paper, sometimes that's a pain when they have that hole in there. I understand why companies do it, but it can be, you know, you're not really getting the full use out of all that cardstock. So I just cut that out with that hole included because I'm going to cover that up with those slopes. And when I've decided what my pattern will be, I use that liquid glue to adhere a couple of the slopes, or at least the back slope, and then that front slope I'm going to use some foam tape because I want to have that popped up. I cut these slopes a little bit too big. They're bigger than my panel, so I have to trim off the edges on these, all of them, which is not a big deal. I don't really mind that. So I've got that foam tape on the back of there, and I've stuck that up, and I'll turn that over and trim off the excess. And then I will start adhering that card to the white card base that is just some Neenah cardstock that I have. I'm using that same liquid glue. I'll adhere that down, and then I will grab the pole sticker from the sticker set, and I'll just kind of stick that in there. Really easy. And then I'll grab a few of the sentiments from the set once I decide which ones I want, and I'll stick those on the top. So I think it says Merry and then Christmas Day. Or no, I think that one just says Merry Christmas. And then the second one I'll start assembling as well. So I'm doing the same exact thing with this one. And I'll turn that over and trim that, and then do the same with that slope using the foam tape once again. And I'm not going to show you the coloring because I will stamp out the pole from the stamp set onto some Express It cardstock. But first I will adhere this to my card base, which is that Audrey Blue pre-scored and pre-cut card base that came in the kit. So I stamp out the, like I said, in Memento Tuxedo Black ink onto some Express It cardstock, my favorite combo for Copic coloring, and then I'll color those off screen. But I'm going to stamp my sentiments. This is fun. There's so many little cute sentiments in this set that could go on that little pole or the little signs. But I put this way, and then the second one is to thee, and then North Pole. I just love how you can do each of the, you know, you could do your signs completely different. It's really cute. So I've got that all colored up with my Copics, and then I'm going to adhere that. Sorry, I did miss stamping the Merry on that slope. I just used the Festive Berries that came in the kit. That is the Distress Oxide ink. And then I'm going to use that liquid glue to tape down or glue down my sign. And then I'm going to grab another sticker from the set that says Christmas Day, and I'll adhere that under the Merry. And then that'll finish off these 2 cards. I just thought I had to make 2. I had all the pieces, and they were just fun. So 2 variations using sticker and stamp. So let's go ahead and take a look at the cards that I made today. There will be a bonus one as well on this one. So I colored that off screen just hanging out with my husband. But I would love to know which of these is your favorite. And if you didn't see part 1, head back to my channel and check that out. And I hope that you guys are having an awesome holiday season. And so here it is. Here's the bonus. If you like this video, hit the like button. And thanks for stopping by, guys.